So recently, Fractal Design just released their new Define 7. If you guys, I'm sure you probably have seen many water cooling builds in their Define R6, as well as their many cases like the Meshify S2. The Define 7 is really awesome. And it seems like there's an XL version now. And recently I just got that, and this is going to be a little video talking about my preliminary plans to do a really cool water-cooled build in it. So let's get started talking. Hey guys, Tiago with Classical Technology here. Thank you for joining me for another video. If you like my content, subscribe, smash that like button, leave a comment below. So recently, almost as if by surprise, I saw that Fractal Design has a new 7 version of their very famous case. Now, right behind me here, I have the Define R6. And if you guys have seen on the channel, I've also done a few builds in the Meshify S2, the Meshify C Mini. So I really like the cases. In fact, this one here is sort of like a workstation build. I love the way that they look understated at the same time being very high quality and also having a lot of finesse for a water cooling build. So as soon as I saw the 7 version, you know, the Define 7, at first, to be honest, I didn't see as big of a difference visually until I started reading about the specs a little bit more. Basically, to summarize, the 7 version versus the 6, it just has a lot of small little updates that are going to make the building process easier. It's going to make some things with the cabling better, with the airflow. It's a very subtle design, and I think to really notice a difference in improvement, you would have to have been somebody who built in the R6 and now are building in the 7 version. So I decided to go about this a little bit differently. I didn't really want to get the regular 7 version, but what really piqued my interest was the XL version. Now, the XL version of cases have become really popular lately. If you guys have seen the Lee & Dynamic XL, for me that was a massive upgrade. I was never able to comfortably do a really cool water cooling build in the original Lee & Dynamic. As nice as the case is, it had certain limitations. You couldn't really have a vertical GPU and a thick radiator on the bottom. The spacing was just a little bit compromised, but when the XL version of the Lee & Dynamic came out, I was really pumped, and I made an awesome build in it. And I thought many of the problems were solved because now I could do a vertical GPU, I could still do a thick radiator, cooling performance wasn't compromised. So overall, I was very happy with that. Not to say that the Define R6 has any real space limitations. In fact, in the Meshify S2, which is basically the same as the R6, aside from having that mesh front panel, I was able to do a very nice high-end water cooling build. I didn't have any performance issues. I was able to fit a radiator on the top, a 360 mil. I was able to fit 240 on the front and a 240 in the basement. Now, by any stretch of the imagination, that's definitely a lot of radiator space. A little bit overkill, but that meant that I could run low RPM fans for optimal noise and performance. Now, the XL version is going to be able to fit a lot more radiator space. In fact, you can fit a 480 millimeter radiator. So that's going to be pretty impressive. I have the EK Performance Edition of the 480 millimeter radiator, and in fact I've had this for a few years, and any case that I've put this in, it absolutely like demolishes any type of temperature and gaming benchmarks. It's an absolute performance monster. It's so thick, 480 millimeters, and you put some good static pressure fans on that, and it's really stunning. In fact, I'm going to be moving a lot of my build from my Fantex Lux 2, the 709, which is also a massive case with plenty of radiator space, and believe it or not, equally priced to this. So I'm going to do a comparison between those two cases, and a little bit of a spoiler alert, I have a feeling I'm going to like the Fractal Design case better, just because I know their build quality to be better. There were a couple of things I didn't really like on the Fantex Lux 2 too much, even though it is a great case for water cooling, but we'll discuss that in a separate video. So for the XL version, what I plan to do is put a 480 millimeter radiator on the top. So I really have to see if I can fit one on the top and whatever I can fit on the front. I don't think I can fit a second 480 millimeter radiator, but I'm going to read through the spec sheet, make sure what I can fit. I'm going to jam in there as much stuff as I possibly can. Most likely, hopefully I can fit maybe a 280 or a 360 in the front, and on the bottom another 240 or maybe a 280 or something like that. I always really like getting the most radiator space possible because that means that I can run my fans at their absolute lowest while maintaining a really nice equilibrium with the noise and the performance. If you have a little bit of radiator space, you can still cool well in some instances, but you're going to have to run those fans a lot louder. If you have a lot of radiator space, you can run multiple fans and it's going to be quieter. As counterintuitive as it seems, more fans means generally you're going to have less noise, which is optimal for water cooling. So that's definitely one of the things I'm most looking forward to this case, is just the amount of water cooling that I'm going to be able to fit in it. Massive radiators, that's the name of the game. Now, in terms of the reservoir, that's where I need to make another decision, because recently it seems like the water distribution blocks, with the embedded pumps, DDC often, but some of them have D5 pumps now, have become all the rage lately. And while I still like a really nice D5 pump with a nice reservoir, the tube cylindrical reservoir that we're used to, I'm going to have to make a decision if I want to use a water block for the reservoir or maybe the traditional cylindrical reservoir. Now for the Fantex Lux case, which is another big case, I happen to use the really, really large EK cylindrical reservoir, and I thought it came out really good. I may even use that in here just because that fills the space out so nicely. Nothing like seeing a huge tube full of liquid, and really, really cool, even though it makes the case obscenely heavy. That's something I'm not looking forward to. That's one of the reasons I almost got the regular size version of the 7, just because I love the more compact size. It's not a small case by any means. It's a little bit bigger than this R6 back here, the new 7 version, but the R6, I could consider it a fairly, it's a mid-size case. You can pick it up and move it around. The Fantex Lux 2, and I fear that the XL version of this Define 7 is going to be just way too heavy to be able to easily move around. Not that I'm moving them around often, but sometimes you have to, and of course it's a little bit of an annoyance, it's just heavier and you have to put it on a really sturdy table. So that reservoir decision is going to be something I'm going to have to make. I'm not completely sure yet. I could even do a mixture of two, have a traditional reservoir as well as a water block somewhere. For example, in the Fantex Lux 2, I had a water distribution plate in the back of the case, and I have the big cylindrical reservoir in the front of the case, so you can sort of mix both, and I think that may be the answer, but I'll see how the spacing is. I don't think I'm going to do a dual GPU in this or anything like that, no SLI. Most likely, if I can, I may do a vertical GPU. I did think about doing like a blacked out version, which is kind of what I did with the Fantex Lux 2. I do have a Titan GPU with sort of the aceto EK block that's all blocked out. Sometimes I like it because it gives it a really cool look. Sometimes I don't like it because you can't see the liquid. I do think in general it's nicer to be able to see the liquid. Like in this case over here, I have a water block vertically, Cooler Master H500M. I have a vertical GPU block, but you can see the liquid in there. There's even the little flow sensor inside the GPU block. That happens to be a Corsair Hydro X block. So I'm not too sure. I do have that GPU that I can take out of the other case to do this new build, but it is all blacked out, like I said. So I'd have to really go hard with that theme. Otherwise, I have to switch around the GPU that you can see the liquid in if I do vertical, which honestly I do prefer. It just looks so awesome with the liquid. And speaking of the liquid or the coolant in this case, in the Fantex Lux 2, I did the EK Solid Yellow, which is one of my favorites. I really, really like it. I'm thinking of switching it up to purple. I haven't done purple in the build ever. I've done blue, I've done red, green, yellow, orange. I like them all for what they are, but I've never done a purplish look. I gotta see if it's gonna look good in such a big case, and if I did, I definitely would kind of need the vertical GPU to be able to show that, be an acrylic block so that I can see it, because I think the purple would look pretty cool. And I start putting components together and I see the cable color that I'm gonna use, I may then be able to make a better decision. This is all what we think about when we're planning a water cooling build. Now, we haven't even gotten to the tube runs and things like that. Now, I know for this one, I wanna do hard tube. I wanna make it really, really cool. I want to do bends and hard tubes, but that's because I think a big case like this showcases those little details a whole lot better. And the Fantex Lux 2, I actually use soft tube. I use the EK ZMT, the zero maintenance tubing, the really thick matte black tubing, which looks really, really awesome, by the way. It really served the purpose of the theme of that build, sort of like an understated low RGB blacked out look, But with this Fractal Design case, I want to make it sort of a little bit of a spectacle. So I definitely want to do hard tube. I want to do a very vibrant, beautiful coolant with a lot of bends in there, do some nice cables. So that's pretty much where I'm thinking right now. I haven't seen too many builds yet in the XL version, especially water cooling builds. It's going to help people who are deciding to get this case when they see an actual build being done. It's going to give them a little bit more of an idea of what to do, what's possible in the case, what isn't. So I'm really looking forward to doing a sick water cooling build in this case. And I know recently mini ITX cases have become very popular. People love building in them, especially if you do a water cooled build. They look very impressive, but nothing's ever going to replace a big massive case like this, just because you can fit in all the water cooling parts that you want. It's like a visual theme park. You're really not going to replace something that looks this awesome performance-wise or aesthetically. As nice as a mini ITX system is and as practical as it is to move around and take apart, a big case like this is just super impressive, and that's why I'm really excited to build in it and share with you guys what happened. All right, guys, this was just my initial video. I'll do a little review of it. Hopefully we can learn some more from it, and then eventually I'm also going to start doing my water cooling build on it. I'll keep you guys updated. You'll be able to see what the build is like. That way, if you decide to do a build in a case like this in the future, you'll have a pretty good idea. So stay tuned for those videos. Remember to like, subscribe, leave a comment below, and I'll see you guys on the next video.